All right, hello Neogenians, welcome to Dawn of the New Earth. Today we are continuing to talk about the Tree of Death and the qliphah. Specifically, we are looking at the demonic influences in your life that feed off emotions, in other words, cause emotions such as jealousy, envy, lust, and anger, and not only how to take back power, but how to use those forces to your advantage for motivation and extreme personal transformation. This is going to be a really good video. We have a lot to talk about, a very important one, and we're going to be talking about one of my favorite Archons. He's super cool. You're going to like it. You're going to like this one. It's a good one. So that's what we're talking about today. We're going to get started here. As always, make sure you hit like and subscribe. Help this stuff go viral. Help spread enlightenment and wake up the world. It really fucking needs it right now. And if you want to help out even more, consider becoming a member. You get access to a lot of great stuff if you become a member. For example, I'm going to be making a downloadable summary of this video for everyone who's a member. You're also going to get access to a lot of I have a ton of downloads and PDFs on the Tree of Death and the Tree of Life and alchemy and rituals, etc. And if you're at the Pathfinder tier or higher, you can also get access to our exclusive members-only videos. There's a ton of them, and we're having a members-only video recording right after this called "This Bible Expert Just Revealed the Secret Teachings of Jesus Christ." So that's going to be a wild one. It's going to be fun. All right, so let's see here. Anything else? Oh yeah, if you want to help out more, check out my books. Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind. That's the first one in my series. Anything else? Let's see. Follow me on Spotify. I do have a Spotify account. Link is in the description of this video. Links to all of those things are in the description of this video. All right, so let's get started. Today, we are talking about something extremely important. We are talking about what if your emotions are being controlled from the background? We're talking about the hidden force that's been shaping your thoughts, your relationships, your creativity, even your identity without you even knowing it. And in this topic today, in our chat, I'm going to show you how to take that power back, use it in a way for personal motivation and self-transformation. It's going to be really good. So what exactly are we talking about? So we're talking about the Tree of Death, and this particular qliphah that we're talking about is called Arab Zarak, or Arab Zarak. I'll be saying Arab Zarak, or maybe just Zarak, because it's kind of a mouthful. But this is what we're talking about, all right? So I'll show you on the camera here. We have the Tree of Death and the Tree of Life. Very quick summary for those who aren't familiar with what these things are. The Tree of Life and the Tree of Death are a map or a model of the structure of your psyche. The Tree of Life is a model of creative forces and aspects of higher consciousness and are associated with angels. The Tree of Death is associated with the unconscious, shadowy, repressed portions of your mind, the shadow and chaotic forces of chaos and destruction. Okay, so we're talking about the Tree of Death today. We've so far explored Lilith, Gamaliel, and Samael. Today we are talking about Arab Zarak, an extremely important qliphah, and the different levels and demonic entities and archonic forces related to it. So if let's take a quick look at the Tree of Life. So on the Tree of Life, right here in this area here, this is called Netzach. And on the Tree of Life, Netzach, it literally means victory. But what it's about, it's the sphere of emotions. So in the Tree of Life, which represents more creative and higher aspects, it's the realm of emotions like love and desire, okay? But Arab Zarak, or Zarak, is the shadow of Netzach. They kind of have a similar sounding name there. Netzach, Zarak. So Zarak is the shadow of Netzach. What that means is where Netzach is about victory, Zarak is about war. Netzach is symbolically associated with the dove, purity, peace, and love. Zarak is associated with the raven, storms, forbidden emotions, passion, jealousy, lust, envy, etc. And so what it's called, Zarak is called the ravens of dispersion. So each one of the qliphot have a different name. So Lilith are the queens of the night, Gamaliel are the obscene ones, Samael are the poisoners of God, and then Zarak is the ravens of dispersion, which is the qliphothic counterpart to Netzach, and it shows us the shadow side of desire and love. So where Netzach is about beauty and harmony, Zarak takes those same impulses and scatters them into chaos. Remember, the ravens of dispersion. So scattering your desires into chaos. Zarak is also on the pillar of chaos. This is the pillar of chaos. This is the pillar of death. And then the central pillar is the pillar of rebellion. Zarak is on the pillar of chaos, the ravens of dispersion. And so here we have envy, jealousy, and lust and rage. But not just envy, jealousy, lust, and rage, but specifically those that drive you. Because in Netzach, it's the desires that move you to victory. That's what Netzach is about. That you're using your desires to move you to victory, to higher states of love and harmony, etc. Zarak is using dark or forbidden emotions of lust and envy and anger to move you to war. And by war, what I mean by that is a chaotic life, an unintegrated life, a life that is not, a life that is scattered, dispersed. That's what these ravens of dispersion are, okay? It's the emotions you've been told that you're not supposed to have, but they end up controlling you from the shadows, okay? So we want to keep in mind, Zarak is the sphere or qliphah of dark emotions, represented by storms, destructive impulses, obsession, lust. But here's the important part. The gold in the shadow, the positive aspect that we find in here, there's going to be multiple positive aspects, but one of the positive aspects we find in here is creativity, music, and art. But a very specific type of creativity, music, and art. It's the explosive kind that breaks down norms and conformity. Think about like subversive musicians, like shock rock musicians or artists that are very subversive, that put out art that has a meaning and a message behind it that is about going against societal norms and oppressive conformity, right? So Zarak is about art and creativity, but the kind that breaks norms. But you got to be careful because, Zarak not integrated. You can think of like artists who burn themselves out or destroy themselves in their own, like psychological torment of like depression and you can just, I'm sure you can think of artists who just end up like totally destroying themselves, whether it's like through drugs or addiction or who knows what. You can just look at the rock music industry to see like Zarak is all over the rock music industry in both a positive way and a negative way. So let's see. So basically it's about destroying boundaries through emotion and art. It's not rational or ordered. It's about intensity, powerful intensity, which can fuel radical creativity. But that kind of passion can either consume you or completely transform you. Now, for most people, it consumes them because most people aren't aware of their shadow. They don't integrate their shadow. But we're going to be talking about that. Now, I want to talk about some really cool symbolism about like the raven versus the dove. See, in Christianity, the dove represents baptism. You had Jesus Christ who was baptized, and then the dove flew down from heaven onto Christ. So the dove represents purity, the Holy Spirit, and baptism. But in Zarak, the dove is replaced by the raven. This kind of dark baptism here. The raven is the bird of the battlefield. You see this constant association with war because of your warring emotions, the emotions that are fighting within you. So the raven feeds on corpses on the battlefield. It forces you to confront your own mortality. And what this qliphah does, Zarak, when you confront Zarak, it puts you face to face with everything that you are afraid of feeling. All the emotions that you try to repress and ignore. Feelings of envy, feelings of lust, feelings of jealousy, feelings of anger. But confronting Zarak means dealing with them. Most people don't deal with them. They repress them. They ignore them. If you do that, it's just going to run your life from the background. But if you integrate it, you're going to get freedom, motivation, energy, and the ability to self-transform. We're going to talk about that, how it's a source of motivation, how it's a source of renewal, because it can destroy the old and the conventional so that transformation can begin. Okay? So this is a very chaotic qliphah, and we're going to now talk about the different archonic forces and the demonic entities associated with this. Okay, so quick reminder for those who are new. What is a qliphah? So each one of these is a qliphah. These are plural, known as qliphot. So these are sephirot. These are qliphot. Sephirot, qliphot. And what qliphot are different energy structures that exist within your psyche. Now, each one you should think of as like a building with 4 levels. Okay, so think of each qliphah as a building with 4 levels. So Zarak, think of Zarak as a building with 4 levels. What are the 4 levels? The 4 levels are the Archon, the Archdemon, the demons, and the planet, planetary influence. And these are like different stories in the building, different levels in the building. They're all part of the building or qliphah of Zarak, but they are different aspects of it, or rather different levels of it. So the archonic level is basically like the universal collective unconscious. The archdemon level is the human collective unconscious. The demon level are what's known in psychology as complexes. And then the planetary influence is how all these energies result in your actual behavior in the real world, your actions, okay? So it goes down different levels, all these different levels, all these different influences, until it impacts your actual actions and behavior in the real world. That's why you want to get to know these levels and work with these levels, because so that they output something positive rather than something negative, okay? So let's first talk about the archonic level, all right? The top floor here. And at the archonic level, we're dealing with the universal collective unconscious, which means it's the universal current that sets the tone for everything within the qliphah, all right? The Archon is the one who holds the chaos together. Without the Archon, it would just be dispersed energy everywhere. Yes, it's chaos, but it's still like controlled chaos. In Gnosticism, Archons are literally the rulers of chaos, okay? So in Arab Zarak, the Archon here is called Sabayote. Sabayote is one of my favorite Archons. You're going to see why. He's super cool. One of. So, here's what's interesting about this. We haven't talked about this before, but each one of the Sephirot has a divine name. Okay? So just like every qliphah has an Archon. So the four levels of the tree of the qliphah, right, is the Archon, the Archdemon, the demons, and the planet. For the Sephirot, it's a god name, the archangels, the angels, and the planetary influence. Okay? So, long story short, each one of these has an archonic name. Each one of the qliphot has an archonic name. Each one of the Sephirot have a name of deity. What's really interesting, remember, Zarak is the shadow of Netzach. Netzach, the deity name associated with Netzach is Yehovah Sabayote, or Yud-He Vav-He Sabayote. Yehovah Sabayote is the name of Netzach, the deity name of Netzach. In Zarak, we have the archonic name, simply Sabayote. So, Sabayote, remember, Zarak is about war. And we're going to talk about this association, by the way, and why these names match up like this. So, what Sabayote literally means is Lord of Armies, which is very fitting for Zarak, the qliphah of war, warring emotions, okay? That's important to understand. We're not talking about literal war, but it can result in literal war if your emotions lead to that, and emotions often do lead to war. But so the qliphot is associated with war. The Archon, Sabayote's name literally means Lord of Armies. So, on the archonic, shadowy side is where it really, the positive aspect would be like, using your emotion for victory, right? Using your emotion for victory would be Netzach. Using your desire, your love, your harmony, your emotion as drive for victory. But on the shadow side, the Archon of Sabayote is about using the armies of chaos for war. It's very different. Okay, so who is Sabayote? Sabayote is super cool. So Sabayote is the son of the demiurge, or Iyaldabaoth. We haven't talked about this yet, but Iyaldabaoth, or the demiurge, is the Archon associated with qliphah number 1 here, Tamael. Okay? So Sabayote is the son of Iyaldabaoth. And for those who might not be super familiar with Gnosticism, Iyaldabaoth is the Lord of the Archons, the Archon of the Archons, and is associated with the dark aspect of God. It is literally the shadow of God. Iyaldabaoth is the shadow of God. Okay? So, Sabayote is or Iyaldabaoth is the shadow of God. But in terms of Iyaldabaoth is the shadow of God, and Sabayote is the son of the shadow of God. Okay? So let's talk about this and see how this plays out, because there's a lot of cool stuff to talk about here. All right. So we have Sabayote over here in the qliphah of Zarak, which is the son of Yaldabaoth, who is the Archon of the qliphah known as Talmiel. So, you'll notice, by the way, that, well, let's not get into that. I want to make these videos, try and make these videos more concise, so I don't want to get caught up in too many tangents. But anyways, Yaldabaoth is the demiurge. He's the bad guy numeral uno, literally here. He's the first qliphah. Well, within the Archon of the first qliphah. So, like we saw, Sabayote's very name means Lord of Armies, and he is the son of the shadow of God. Yaldabaoth is the shadow of God. Sabayote is the son of the shadow of God. And his name means Lord of Armies. That's already should be giving you Zarak vibes. War, storm, jealousy, corrupted love. But here's where it gets really awesome, because Sabayote has one of the best stories of integration in all of Gnosticism. I absolutely love this story. I think that I talked about this, by the way, in my video called The Real Reason God is Enslaving Souls. If you want more on what we're about to talk about, watch that video, The Real Reason God is Enslaving Souls. I believe I talk about Sabayote in that video. So in a nutshell, who is Sabayote and what's it about? So I'm going to read you a quote from the Gnostic text called On the Origin of the World, okay? Which says, let me get my notes here. Now, when Sabayote, the son of Yaldabaoth, heard the voice of Sophia, he sang praises to her and he condemned the father. Okay, so for those who don't know, Sophia is an eon of light known as wisdom, one of the most powerful beings in existence, okay? But it's a being of pure light. And so Sabayote, son of Yaldabaoth, hears the voice of Sophia. When he hears the voice of Sophia, he sings praises to her and condemns the father, Yaldabaoth. And it says, Sophia stretched out her finger and poured upon him some light from her light. So she gave him a portion of her light. Okay? And it says, he received great authority against all the forces of chaos. This is, by the way, what we're talking about right now is the power that one gets when Sabayote is integrated. This is Sabayote integrating right here, okay? He received great authority against all the forces of chaos. Since that day, he has been called Lord of the Forces. He hated his father, the darkness, and his mother, the abyss. Remember, this is all within the abyss here in our tree of death. And because of his light, all the authorities of chaos were jealous of him. And when they had become disturbed, they made a great war in the seven heavens. So are you seeing a lot of common themes here? Chaos, war, jealousy. So think about it. Sabayote, son of Yaldabaoth, hears Sophia's voice, and he turns toward the light and rebels against his father and praises Sophia. And then Sophia gives him some of her light. And what happens? Jealousy. The rulers of chaos are jealous. They're disturbed. They're envious of him. And that envy explodes into a war in the heavens of chaos. Okay? So here's another text. The text even says, thus, when the prime parent of chaos, that's Yaldabaoth, the prime parent of chaos is Yaldabaoth. Thus, when the prime parent of chaos saw his son Sabayote and the glory he was in, and perceived that he was greatest of all the authorities of chaos, he envied him, and having become wrathful, he engendered death. You see that right there? Sabayote integrates. Yaldabaoth becomes envious, wrathful, and engenders death, literally creates death. Yaldabaoth gets so pissed and envious that he literally creates death. But do you see how we all have these themes of Zarak right here? We have war, jealousy, envy, chaos, death, wrath. But guess what? And I love this. So, okay, actually, hold on. Let's talk about something else real quick. Okay, one more quote. Well, not a couple more quotes here. So it says, then when Sophia had seen the war, she dispatched 7 archangels to Sabayote from her light, and they snatched him up to the 7th heaven. Okay, so first of all, how cool is this? That Sabayote is lifted up into the 7th heaven, and remember, Netzach is the 7th Sephirah, and Zarak is the 7th qliphah. So we have a perfect mirror here. Here we have Sabayote the Archon in the 7th level of the qliphah. And then we have here, remember the deity name associated with Netzach is Yehovah Tsabayoth. So basically like Tsabayote deified. And it's the 7th Sephirah. But guess what? It gets cooler. I really love this story. So we've talked a lot about envy, jealousy, chaos, war, all these emotions that are associated with Zarak, but we're missing one. We haven't really talked about love. And I love this because Sabayote falls in love with Sophia's daughter. And Sophia's daughter's name is Zoe, or Zoe, Zoe. And Zoe in Greek literally means life. So do you see how cool? There's so many parallels here. I just get so excited about it. It's so cool. Yaldabaoth gets jealous of Sabayote and gives birth to death. Sabayote integrates light and falls in love with life. How cool is that? And you see these parallels here of like tree of death, tree of life, and integrated versus unintegrated. I love it. It's so fucking cool. So let's see. And by the way, what we're doing here is original to this channel. Normally in Kabbalah, Gnosticism is not integrated. We're doing something very unique here by integrating Gnosticism with Kabbalah. Archons are Gnostic concepts. Qliphot are Kabbalistic concepts, but we're combining them. And do you see how well they fit together? How well they synergize? So I just want to throw that out there. This isn't like, you know, your typical sort of thing. This is unique to this channel. It's really cool combining these together to give rise to something even more complete here. So anyway, so get this. Then when, so Sophia also gave him, Sabayote, Sophia also gave him her daughter, Zoe, life, and together with great authority, so that she might instruct him about all the things that exist in the 8th heaven. Isn't that cute? I think it's cute. I think it's really cute. So Sabayote not only rises to the 7th heaven, but Zoe, the daughter of Sophia, whose name literally means life, becomes the consort of Sabayote. They rule together. And this is in perfect parallel to the shadow of Yaldabaoth becoming envious and engendering death. You see the parallel I'm trying to get across here? I'm hoping I'm beating it to death, but Yaldabaoth, negative emotions generate death. Here, love generates life. Sabayote falls in love with Zoe, life. And not only that, but it says that Zoe teaches him about the 8th heaven. Okay? So what's cool about that is, let me bring this up. Okay, so remember, Sabayote is associated with the 7th, right? He's the 7th qliphah, and in the 7th heaven when he's pulled up there. And the archonic name is Sabayote. The deity name of Netzach is Yud-He Vav-He Sabayote. But then it says that Sophia's daughter, Zoe, who is his consort now, teaches him about the 8th heaven. And the 8th Sephirah is Hod. And guess what the god name of Hod is? Elohim Sabayote. Elohim Sabayote is the god name of Hod. So we have Elohim Sabayote, Yud-He Vav-He, or Yehovah Sabayote, and then Sabayote. So I just think it's incredibly cool. How we can be, again, I said Sabayote's one of my favorite archons because this is a story, it's an archetypal story of integration. It's super cool. You have Sabayote, who's born in darkness, in chaos, literally the son of the demiurge, literally the son of the shadow of God. But he turns towards Sophia, wisdom, Sophia means wisdom, and gains light as Lord of the forces. So in his negative, shadowy aspect, it's jealousy and war. But in the light aspect, it's love and harmony and life and beauty. And we have Sabayote because this archetypal story of integration. And so integrated, Sabayote is very similar to like Abraxas. He's lifted up to the 7th heaven. The Sabayote is taught by Zoe about the 8th. And he becomes this bridge. Now, unintegrated, right? Before he goes through that integration journey, before that, he's simply the Archon of war, ruling over chaos, driven by jealousy, lust, constantly fueling storms and battles within. Okay? So, the idea here is that Sabayote is both the Archon of war, but also a powerful archetype of understanding integration. He shows that there's a path upward. And what we're going to see here is that the true path upward is through learning how to not to deny our envy or jealousy or lust, but learning how to integrate it and work with it. And that's the real way of bringing darkness to light. That's the real way of transforming chaos into power, fuel into power, okay? So I know I spent a lot of time talking about Sabayote, but I hope you enjoyed that. I just think it's awesome. A very powerful archetypal story of integration and extremely fitting for Zarak, the ravens of dispersion. So remember 4 levels. Top level, archonic level, number 1 of Zarak is Sabayote, Lord of armies. We're going to move 1 down a level to the archdemon level. So remember, the archdemon level is the human collective unconscious. So the archdemon represents the archetypal force that lives inside all of us, that shapes how our psyche organizes itself around these themes. In other words, the Archon is more like these themes in general. The Archdemon is the pattern or blueprint that our psyche uses to begin to organize around the themes. Basically, the Archdemon is how Zarak actually shows up in human beings, in human minds, in the human psyche. And here, the Archdemon of Zarak is Baal or Baal. I just did a video partially about Baal. If you haven't seen it, watch it out. Watch it out. Watch it and check it out, or just watch it out. Whatever you want to do, sure, go for it. It's called "I Found All the Hidden Bible, All the Hidden Gods in the." I cannot speak. All the hidden gods in the Bible, so you don't have to. I found all the hidden gods in the Bible, so you don't have to. I talk about Baal in that video. So okay, let's talk about Baal. What does Baal come from? First, I'll show you his sigil. If it will show up on screen. This is the sigil of Baal, the Archdemon of Zarak. So Baal simply means Lord. And Baal was once a major Canaanite storm and fertility god. He was called the rider of the clouds, and he was about bringing rain and renewal, and even one who conquers death in battles, conquers death itself in battles. But as Yahweh began to rise in power, Baal was demonized. Baal was originally like Yahweh's like Yahweh is a storm god. Baal is also a storm god. He's like Yahweh's rival. So Baal was basically demonized. He was originally a god, but throughout history became demonized. And in the Old Testament, we see Baal as the rival of Yahweh, the rival of the creator God of the Bible. Okay. And by the time you get into the medieval period, Baal had transformed into a demonic king of hell. So he started off as a god of storms and fertility, and eventually became demonized as a demonic king of hell. For those who are familiar with the 72 demons of the Goetia, he's demon number 1. So he is often associated with a form that is part animal, part human, which shows the fusion of primal instinct, which is really related to like primal emotion. So it's when passion and instinct are denied their natural place or repressed, and so turn into disorder or chaos. Okay? So let's continue to talk about this. One quick thing that I forgot to mention is that I'm going to give you exercises at the end of this. You should always do a ritual and an exercise when working with these, the qliphah or the qliphot. And the ritual, I created as a free download for anyone who's a member. The ritual is about invoking your higher self to then have the authority to evoke the particular archdemon of the qliphot that you're working with for the ritualistic aspect. Then for the integrative aspect, you need to do the exercises or suggested exercises I'll suggest at the end of this. Okay, I just want to put that out there. Okay, anyway, in Zarak, Baal is strongly tied to Zarak in his warlord and fertility aspect. Okay, a god of storm, war, destructions. You know, think of ravens circling the battlefield, thunder in the distance, storm winds blowing everything down, your emotions in turmoil. Remember when Jesus Christ was in that in the storm, the raging waters and the winds, and then Jesus walked on the water and calmed the storms. Well, that was a metaphorical or symbolic for becoming master of your emotions, or conquering or transforming the raging waters of emotion. So anyway, Baal here is associated with the storms, the raging winds that represent your internal storms, which are the warlike emotions within us. And again, when I say warlike, I don't mean literal war. I mean our warring emotions. When desire turns into conflict and love turns into jealousy, envy, obsession. Think about the envy that drives people to fight. Think about lust that turns into betrayal. Think about jealousy that destroys relationships, families, and hell, even nations. That's the archdemon Baal at work in the collective psyche. Okay? So, Baal, remember, we're not talking about a demon out there. It's an archetype inside all of us. Baal is the shadow of passion and desire that organizes the psyche around conflict. The storms within us. Okay? So, the shadow of desire. Okay? All that that we had mentioned. So basically, if Sabayote, or the Archon, represents the universal overall current of war and envy, Baal is how that current takes form in us, in the human collective unconscious. All right? So, Baal is so we've done the Archon and the Archdemon. The third level is the demonic level. The demonic level are the demons known as the ravens of dispersion. So, the demonic level is the most personal level. The Archon is the universal collective pattern. The Archdemon is the archetypal force in humanity within all our psyches. But the demon level is the way that it organizes in you, specific to you. In psychological terms, in terms of psychology, these are what are called complexes. It's how Zarak manifests in your personal unconscious based on the experiences, memories, and associations that are unique to you. You have had certain experiences, certain memories, certain that have, think about times where you've become jealous, or maybe were betrayed, or whatever. They've shaped the way that the archetype has organized your psyche into these complexes. So, in other words, the demonic level here is causing a lot of chaos in your mind, scattering your focus, and breaking your energy apart, and are associated with the particular with your particular experience of all the themes here. So it's your specific experiences and memories associated with envy, anger, lust, jealousy, all that stuff. Another thing that I want to talk about here is that Zarak, being the ravens of dispersion, is also about like unfocused energy. And Netzach, it's victory, and it's very focused. And Zarak, it is chaotic and unfocused. It's all over the place. It's warring. So I don't remember where I heard this metaphor, and it's kind of a weird one, but it's like this. Picture a clear inflatable ball. Okay? A clear inflatable ball. So you can see the inside of the ball. And imagine that inside the ball are a bunch of bees. Let's say there's like 100 bees in the ball. Now, if all the bees, and imagine that the bees represent your desire or desires. If all the bees fly in the same direction, they're going to push the ball and the ball start rolling in a certain direction. But if all the bees are buzzing around chaotically, all going a different direction, the ball's not going to get anywhere because the energy is dispersed, okay? So that's the ravens of dispersion cause that chaotic. I know it's kind of a weird metaphor because well, the bees they're gonna sting the ball and pop it. I know it's a metaphor. Doesn't matter. They don't have stingers. They're magic bees without stingers. They don't think of it. Flies. Sure. Flies. I don't know. Butterflies. Grass. I don't know. Anyway, they're bees without stingers. But you get what I'm saying. Anyway, long story short, that's another way of understanding what Zarak does to the psyche. It disperses, ravens of dispersion, disperses your energy. So it's all over the place, going in different directions. Okay, so we did the Archon, the Archdemon. Now the demon level, I'm not really going to talk about it too much because it gets too complicated because it's about specific to you. In future videos, if you guys really want, we could do whole videos associated with that specifically because it's like a whole nother level of psychological work, which deals with, like thinking about your own life. And it gets really, really detailed. For these videos, we're focusing on the Archdemon mostly, working with the Archdemon because it's enough to begin to start integration. But I almost decided to not talk about that level, but I want you to have all the levels in mind so that you have a complete picture of all 4 levels. Okay. So we have the Archon, the Archdemon, the, demons, and then the 4th is the planetary level. Okay, so remember the planetary level has to do with planets, but just like demons, we're not talking about entities out there. The planets have nothing to do with the actual planets in the sky. Okay, very important to keep in mind. Just like the demons are forces within you and the angels are forces within you, the planets are forces within you. We just use the symbolism of them as archetypal symbols to communicate with their unconscious. And so at the planetary level is where all the layers of Zarak come together. And, the universal chaos of the Archon, the human archetype of Baal, the personal complexes of the ravens of dispersion. All of those are influencing the organization of your psyche, okay? From Archon to demon, Archon, Archdemon, demon. They're all in one way or another ultimately are responsible for the way your psyche develops. Archon level is a little more universal than that, but it's the overarching superset. Anyway, the planetary level is where it takes form and how you act and behave in the world. It's about your actions. All the demons and archons and archdemons, they're ultimately related to mind. The planetary level is where all of that results in your behavior and actions because the planets are physical things. Not that it literally has to do with the planets, but that's symbolically speaking why the planets are associated with the level of action because they are in the material world, where demons and archons and all that are in the immaterial mental world. Again, I just want to make it crystal clear that this is symbolic and metaphorical, nothing to do with the literal planets out there. It's about using it as a symbol. Okay? All right. So what's the planetary force we have? Well, in Netzach, the planetary force is Venus. In Zarak, the planetary force is the shadow of Venus called vesper. Vesper means the evening star. Okay? Lucifer means the morning star. Lucifer means the morning star and refers to Venus. That's what Lucifer literally means. Lucifer is a word that refers to Venus in the morning. Hence morning star. Vesper is the word that refers to Venus in the evening, hence the evening star. So Venus belongs to Netzach, and she's about beauty, harmony, love, attraction, specifically the behavior and actions that result from that. But in Zarak, Vesper, the dark Venus, the shadow form, this is where it all becomes, love can become manipulation, desire, jealousy. It flips everything into, like we've been talking about, obsession, envy, lust, all that, rivalry. But in terms of the actual actions and behaviors of that you take part in. So on this level, the shadow of Venus doesn't stay in your thoughts or emotions. It shows up in your behavior. And so what that can look like is, like I said, jealousy in relationships, but that can result in, let's say, like scrolling through your partner's phone. You're super suspicious all the time, glancing at every text they receive. Every time they maybe like happen to look at someone, you get enraged. The constant jealousy poisons the love until the relationship is destroyed. You can think about lust and what actions that results in. You can't stop fixating on someone you're attracted to, even if they're unavailable or you're not unavailable. The lust becomes all consuming, and you're going to end up sabotaging yourself or others or a relationship you're in just to feel that rush. Envy of someone else's success. You see someone else with a lot of money or more recognition or a way you'd like to look in terms of beauty, but that turns into resentment, and you become obsessed, and you try to tear them down or compete in ways that are very destructive. Yeah, it results in you trying to compete in destructive ways. You could also think of things like manipulation. Instead of using attraction for connection, you use it as a weapon to dominate and control, turning relationships like into battlefields of power. And very importantly, scattered energy. This is one I don't think we've talked about enough, but it's very important to this qliphah. Scattered energy. Remember the bees all scattered? Too many desires, lust, envy, pleasure, validation, jealousy, all of it, and never truly focusing. Your life becomes dispersed. It's fragmented. Everything's half finished. You never finish anything. So here at this level, Zarak is no longer just a storm inside you. It starts scattering your real world actions, what actually happens to you because of your behavior, because of this demonic force controlling you from the shadows. But remember that this isn't all bad, because it shows us exactly where transformation can happen, which means that Vesper, yeah, it's the shadow of emotion, but it also teaches us how to redeem desire. And we're going to see that when integrated, the same energy can become art, ecstasy, passion, and motivation. It can become a drive that fuels your purpose and your relationships and your creativity, but you have to be directing it instead of letting it scatter you. So these are the four levels. Let's talk about what happens when Zarak is unintegrated. It's not integrated and repressed. When Zarak is repressed, all this energy gets pushed down as forbidden emotions. You think, oh, they're wrong or evil. So you repress your envy, your lust, or your jealousy. You deny them. You might be like, oh, I'm not an envious person. I'm not a lustful person. I'm not a jealous person. You are. You're just putting it under the rug. But the problem is, as we've talked about over and over on this channel, what you repress doesn't go away. It just goes underground. If you have a pile of shit on your floor and you just cover it with a rug, you're still going to smell the shit. It's not a perfect metaphor, because you can't really integrate shit. I don't suggest that you do, but you get what I mean. You can't just shove this away. You got to find a way to deal with it. So this can be like, you tell yourself, oh, you're not jealous. I'm not jealous. But really, you secretly feel bitter every time someone else succeeds, even if you don't acknowledge it yourself. It's there. And when it comes to lust, you might act like you don't care about sex or passion, but secretly you have this like burning desire inside you affecting your life. Same thing with envy, secretly comparing yourself. And this ends up in like your creativity getting blocked, because your creativity is blocked because you're not accessing what can ultimately be powerful. Because it can be powerful. We're going to talk about how it can be powerful. But when it's repressed, you basically pretend that all these things don't exist, but they secretly control your life from the background. So integrated. No. Let's not talk about integration yet. Let's talk about when it's still not integrated, but possessed. Remember, always don't fear the qliphah, but don't become obsessed with them either. Fear results in repression. Obsession results in possession. When you're possessed by Zarak, you're no longer denying those emotions, but instead of integrating them, you let them control you and take the wheel. You just become, and this can result in many different ways, but let's say you just like let your lust run rampant and control you chase every desire. You don't care about consequences. You're envious of everyone. You're tearing people down constantly, trolling people online or whatever. And again, this is going to result in scattered energy. You start things, you never finish. You're pulled in all these different directions. Now, if you are possessed by Zarak, you can be very creative, but it can so chaotic that it's destructive. Again, this is Zarak possession is very much well represented by like a rock star who creates like amazing music, but ends up destroying themselves with drugs or alcohol or addiction. It's chaotic passion without control. You don't have the emotions. The emotions have you, right? So it's always important to remember, you don't want to identify with any of these because identification leads to possession. But you want to realize that they're all aspects of you. So let's talk about integrating Zarak. And integrating Zarak, we're going to talk about how to do that. But always remember, integrate is just a fancy word for deal with. Repression is, oh, I have shit on the ground. I'm going to cover it up with a rug. And oh no, everything smells bad now. Possession is, oh no, there's shit on the ground and I'm going to roll around in it like a dog because I love the shit. And integration is like, oh, there's shit on the ground. I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to find a way to deal with it. Not a perfect metaphor, because I don't really know how you would, because remember, you can't get rid of it. I don't know how you'd positively deal with shit. If you have any ideas in the comments, let me know. If you have a way to complete that metaphor in a positive way, what can you do with shit to deal with it in a way? You can't get rid of it. You can't flush it. It's not an option. What are you going to do with it? Anyway, let's talk about integrating Zarak. When you integrate Zarak, you don't repress the emotions, the forbidden one. You don't repress the forbidden emotions, but you also don't let them destroy you and take over. You learn how to work with them. And you discover that envy, lust, jealousy, even anger and chaos can fuel you. Think about it like this. Jealousy and envy don't have to mean you want to tear other people down. That's the unintegrated form. Integration, jealousy, and envy can become a mirror where you recognize, hey, you know what? I am jealous of X, Y, and Z. I am envious of X, Y, and Z. Why? Explore it. Question it. Because it can show you what you secretly want for yourself. So when it's integrated, instead of obsessing over why someone has something you don't, you ask, like, what is this desire pointing me towards? What can I do in my life to elevate myself? What does it reveal about what I really want out of life? So when envy is integrated, it's not about being better than others. It's about exploring those emotions as a healthy way to understand your desires and as motivation to grow. Oh, I'm envious that so-and-so has this nice car. Well, instead of just being an envious asshole, you can use it to think, why? Okay, apparently that's something that matters to me. Why does that matter to me? You can use that as a mirror and also as motivation. Instead of being like, oh, I'm so envious of this person, be like, I'm going to work on myself so that I can get to a position where I make enough money where I can get that car. It becomes this mirror. Same thing with lust. Lust in chaotic form can ruin your life. But integrated, you can use it as a spark of passion that keeps relationships alive. It can turn like boring routine into fiery connection. Keep making intimacy still exciting and full of energy. In other words, instead of either running from lust or letting it consume you, you can direct it to deepen your bond and exploring desires consciously and keeping sparks alive without devolving into obsession. Same thing with anger. We've talked about this a lot on this channel, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but same thing with anger. Repressed, it builds up and builds up. Possessed, you're just an angry asshole all the time, and you know it. But integrated anger becomes fuel. You can use it to put it, use that energy to put into your art. Activist movements that you care about. Healthy, safe forms. In other words, you can channel anger into creativity, paint, write, sing, perform, move your body around. You can use it as fuel. I'm not going to go, again, I talked about this a lot, integrating anger a lot in other videos. So check out other videos if you want more, but so here's one of the most important parts about integrating Arab Zarak. One of the most important parts. So Zarak, like we've seen, is tied to music and creativity and art. But the point is, it's not the polite or safe kind. Netzach would be the more, Zarak is art, music, and creativity that is subversive, that tears down false boundaries. It's creativity that rips apart conformity and shows the raw truth underneath. Again, music is a really great, think about punk rock bands, whatever, that have really opened people's eyes. Music was hugely transformative in my life in stepping away from Christianity. A lot of individuals who expressed in their lyrics the hypocrisy of Christianity really spoke to me. That is Zarak. So it's when you can turn chaos into creation. You take the chaos and turn it into creation. Because, right, like the pillar of chaos is about breaking up patterns when used properly. And that's not always a bad thing. You can use it when order restricts until it becomes death. You use the chaos to break it up. So when you use passion to express something that the world doesn't want to look at, you break open new possibilities, not just for yourself, but for the world. You say, hey, look at this. look at the shit. That's when you tell the world, hey, everyone, there's some shit on the floor. Look at it. Stop pretending it doesn't exist. I know y'all can smell it. It's right there. So here's the cool part. The Zarak is actually really essential for the healthy development of the ego. Because when its chaotic energy is properly integrated, when you allow yourself to explore your forbidden emotions, wild creativity, and self-expression that goes against conformity, a realization happens. And that is that the ego isn't a prison. It can be. But when you understand it properly, the ego is not a prison. The ego is a canvas. It's something you can shape, transform, and design like a work of art. You stop seeing yourself as this fixed identity and start seeing yourself as a creator, sculpting who you are through passion and creativity, transforming yourself. That's why Zarak is also associated with death, but death in terms of you are constantly destroying your old self so you can use that chaotic energy for, to disrupt boundaries so that you can be free to create yourself into whatever you so will. We saw last time that Samael was about destroying boundaries, but it was about destroying rational boundaries, or supposed rational boundaries. Intellectual boundaries is a better way to say it rather than rational. Samael was about destroying intellectual boundaries. Zarak, properly integrated, is about destroying emotional boundaries. It's on a more emotional level. But here, the really important part, and I really want to drive it home, properly integrated, Zarak lets you realize, I am a living work of art. And I can create myself however I so will. That's why I have a hell of a lot of respect for trans people, by the way. We are all living, transforming works of art. Anyone that tells you otherwise, they are stuck and trapped in a prison of their own mind. Okay, so integrated, Zarak gives you the freedom to stop hiding from envy and lust and rage and all that and using them as raw material. So now the ravens aren't scattering you anymore. They're helping lift you up, feeling your art. So let's talk about some actual practical exercises for this. Let me bring up my notes here and give you some ideas. And remember, these are just spitballing to get you thinking about how to integrate. Remember, you should always do a ritual and practical integration. The ritual, I have, like I said, members, you can download that. Just go to my channel, hit the members tab, and it'll be one of the top links there. But here are some practical exercises. So here's one for jealousy as a mirror. Next time you feel jealous, pause and write it down. Don't repress it. Don't become possessed by it. Think about it. Who are you jealous of? What exactly do they have that you want? What is it really? And what does it reveal about your desires? And then what this means is that you can turn jealousy and envy into a list of goals instead of grudges. If you're jealous of someone's relationship, maybe you're craving intimacy. If you're envious of someone's success, maybe it's pointing you towards a career path that you've been afraid to admit that you'd actually want. Use it as a mirror. Let it turn into a list of goals. Use it as motivation. Jealousy and envy, when properly integrated, can become a mirror, goals, and motivation. Lust, we talked about lust. You can pick a way to bring lust back into a relationship without it becoming destructive. Trying something new with your partner that you've never done before. Trying like role-playing, dressing in ways that excite you, BDSM, or whatever. Of course, always remember that it's consensual and safe and everything that I shouldn't have to say. It should go without saying, but you know what I mean. So use lust as something, instead of something that breaks apart, fire that ignites, can reignite connection. Anger is fuel. We've talked about this a lot, so I'm not going to get into it too much. But when you feel anger, don't suppress it and don't let it explode. Move through it and find a way to express it in a healthy way. You can journal about your anger, write down everything. I hate this, blah, 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 blah. I'm so mad about this, whatever, write it down. Channel it into a workout, running, dancing. Or create something with raw, black metal band, whatever. Figure out a creative way to channel it. Again, I've talked about this quite a lot in other videos. The point is not to erase it or become possessed by it, but using it as momentum into expression. This is a good one. Chaotic creativity into art. So you can, let's see, pick a creative outlet. And this is great too if you're not naturally a creative person. Use that as a way to explore this. Writing, music, art, performance, whatever. Pick something creative. But don't just do any sort of random work of art. Do a work of art that you specifically do to push against a boundary of some kind. Don't aim for pretty or polished. Aim for real and raw or exposing. Like you are creating art that exposes hypocrisy, or you are, again, not about being pretty or polished. Oh, I hope everyone likes how pretty this is. Make art that makes people question, or you question. Ask yourself, what does society say you're not allowed to say? What does society say you're not allowed to feel? What are all the negative boundaries? Put that into your art. So that's how Zarak's power of tearing down false boundaries becomes creative instead of destructive. And then we have the ego as art, which is one of my favorites. Huge theme in my life, and one of the most important messages I try and get across is think of your egoic identity as a work of art that you're creating. And ask yourself these questions, or even write them down. What kind of person do I want to sculpt myself into? Who would I like to become? And how could I become more like that? How could I work towards being more like that? I'll give you one example. I wanted to be a performer, and I was terrified of public speaking. So I went to open mic nights, took a public speaking class, started doing street performing. Now I'm way more comfortable on stage than I am in social situations. What passions and emotions do you want to channel into that self? And what boundaries or rules do you have to break in order to become it? And again, remember, I'm not saying go break the law. Don't do that. Don't do anything dangerous. Don't do anything illegal. That's not what I mean. Make sure everything is safe and consensual. I'm not saying I really want to be a serial killer. That's not what I mean. You know what I mean. I mean, if a particular religion or society says, oh, you should not dress like that, or you should not, that's not ladylike, or that's not what a man does, or that's not what blah, 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 blah. Fuck all that. Life is a game. Think of this as the character creation. What attributes do you want your characters to have? Do you want tattoos? Do you not want tattoos? Do you want plastic surgery? Do you not want plastic surgery? Do you want, what kind of, do you want to wear extremely, what people would define as outlandish clothing? You don't have to either. You could want to be someone who expresses themselves in a more subtle, toned down way. It's not about being right or wrong here. It's about having fucking fun with it, man. Like, life is here. We're here to enjoy it. And everyone's such a dick to each other. Like, we're playing this game. So who do you want to be? Be who you want to be. Have fun. So don't see yourself stuck as who you are. Design yourself with intention. So, let's see. I think we're going to wrap it up there. That went a lot longer than I thought it would, but I hope you guys really understand how important and powerful this particular qliphah was, or qliphah is. And I hope you enjoyed the Archonic story about Sabayote. I thought that was super cool. Next week, if you guys want to continue this, we will continue with the 6th qliphah, known as Tigerian. Tigerian is one of my favorite qliphahs. I mean, they're all interesting in their own ways, but Tigerian is right smack dab at the center of the pillar of rebellion and the dark shadow of Tiferet, and is the sphere of the Antichrist. Very interesting. Tigerian's very interesting. So if you guys want to see that, let me know in the comments, and we'll do it next week. But yeah, thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoy this. As always, become a member if you can, if you feel like it, if you want to help out. It helps out a lot. I appreciate it. You'll get access to all those downloads that I talked about. You can also get access to our members only videos. We're having a members only video right after this called The Bible. This Bible expert just revealed the secret teachings of Jesus Christ. That's going to be a good one. Check out my books if you haven't, and follow me on Spotify. Links are in the description of this video to all that stuff. Big shout out to everyone who supports, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, DB, Dallas, Nisselina, Celsus, Chris Magistus, Eric. They call me Trinity, Solange, and Dakota, and everyone else. If I haven't added your name yet, I will soon. Thank you all very much.